We all know that feeling, right? Life just keeps getting busier. And you're searching for, well, a moment of real peace, something deeper.
Mm-hmm. That's the point.
Exactly. And for you, the learner, someone who wants that knowledge but, doesn't want to feel overwhelmed by it, that's what we're really digging into today.
Absolutely. Yeah, our mission here in this deep dive is exploring this really powerful perspective on finding inner peace, maybe a more profound way to live.
Okay.
And we're drawing these ideas from a pretty thought-provoking YouTube video by Rabbi Itamar Schwartz.
Right. And what grabs you immediately, I think, is the core question he poses, which is really the heart of our discussion.
Yeah.
What if genuine inner peace, true seclusion, isn't just about carving out time, but about actually changing how we live, fundamentally?
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
not just scheduling quiet time, but a whole life approach.
Yeah. Moving beyond that scheduled reflection to something more like a 24/7 inner sanctuary. It's a big shift, not just, another thing on the list.
Right, right. Because the usual way people understand Hitbodedut, that word.
Seclusion, solitude,
Yeah.
those translations.
Yeah, exactly. It usually means setting aside specific time for self-reflection, maybe gratitude, prayer, that kind of thing.
That's the familiar idea, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That designated time to check in.
Mm-hmm.
But Rabbi Schwartz seems to be pointing to something deeper, doesn't he? Something beyond just that daily appointment.
He really is. He talks about it being a way of life characterized by this inner seclusion that sort of permeates everything you do.
Wow. Permeates everything.
Yeah. It's about cultivating an internal state that influences your whole being, not just during those set-aside times.
That's a really different angle, isn't it? We're not just talking about adding another calendar item.
Not at all. It's more like a fundamental shift in your internal operating system.
Okay.
And so it's not just about practical tips for those quiet moments. It's much bigger. It's about nurturing a whole internal world, a constant baseline of peace.
So if that's the goal, this life of inner seclusion, what are the foundations? What holds it up?
Well, Rabbi Schwartz points to two sort of general secrets, as he calls them.
Uh-huh.
First, it's about cultivating a life that's generally marked by quiet and calm just in your day-to-day.
Right. Less frantic energy.
Exactly. And second, it's about actively engaging with the inner layers of your soul, really connecting inward.
Now, we have touched on some initial steps for calmness before, haven't we? Things like engaging senses, breathing.
Yes, and we sort of hinted at those inner layers too.
Yeah.
Those were more like preparatory exercises, getting the ground ready. But now the focus shifts to the actual practical shape of a life that fosters this inner peace.
Okay.
And this goes way beyond just setting aside time. It's about the very fabric of how you live each day.
And that feels so relevant because modern life, it's constant busyness, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Work, family, chores, always connected technologically.
Yeah. Finding mental peace can feel almost impossible sometimes.
It really can. And Rabbi Schwartz suggests this thought experiment.
Okay.
Imagine just for a moment, all your external obligations just vanished. Poof, gone.
Wow. Okay.
How would you choose then? How would you structure your life if the main goal was peace and tranquility? What would that ideal calm day actually look like?
Yeah, that's powerful because it forces you to think about what really nourishes you without all the external demands and noise.
Exactly. And he even suggests a practical exercise.
Like actually doing something.
Yeah. He says, try writing down your vision of this ideal, peaceful life. Get specific.
Okay.
Then put it side by side with your current daily reality. Compare them.
To see the gap.
Precisely. Where does it line up? And maybe more importantly, where are the big differences? Identifying that gap between the peace you want and, well, the life you're currently living.
That makes sense. Understanding where you are versus where you want to be.
Exactly. And according to this perspective, a really crucial first step is just having that genuine desire for a calmer life.
Just wanting it.
Wanting it sincerely. Without that internal drive towards peace. Trying to make these changes. Well, it's much harder. It needs to come from within.
Okay, so you see the gap, you feel the desire for change. How do you actually start bridging that gap? This is where the needs versus wants thing comes in, right?
Yes, that's a central piece. The idea is that a lot of our inner turmoil, our busyness, it doesn't actually come from our genuine needs. It comes from the constant pull of our desires. We collect so many wants that start to feel like they're necessities,
Oh, definitely. You see that everywhere. Like how we spend our free time, for instance. We might feel we need to go shopping or plan some big, elaborate family thing, thinking it'll recharge us.
But Rabbi Schwartz pushes us to ask, Is that activity really essential for rejuvenation? Or are there maybe simpler, quieter, less demanding ways to find that same or even deeper sense of peace?
That's a good question. It makes you examine the motivation.
Exactly. Like, think about hours spent online. Is it truly a need right then for specific info or connection? Or is it more habit, desire, maybe FOMO, fear of missing out,
Yeah.
or even something like weddings? What's truly needed for the marriage itself versus what comes from, you know, societal pressure or just personal desires for a certain kind of event?
So the point isn't necessarily to become an ascetic, denying everything.
No, no, not at all.
It's more about developing sharp awareness,
Oh,
understanding that difference between core needs and all the extra desires that clutter things up.
exactly that. The goal isn't zero desires beyond basic survival. It's becoming really conscious of the distinction
Okay.
and then consciously, intentionally choosing to reduce the power that unnecessary desires have over you.
Right.
By aligning more with genuine needs, you're basically building a stronger, more stable foundation for inner calm.
And the payoff for doing that, for that conscious pruning, I guess.
Well, the perspective here is that by seeing the difference and choosing to lessen the grip of those unnecessary wants, you actually gain a profound sense of freedom.
Freedom. How so?
Freedom from being constantly pulled around by impulses. It leads to more calm and ultimately a deeper contentment. You're just not being yanked in a million directions anymore.
Okay, that makes sense. And this ties back to that idea of the inner world needing quiet, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Rabbi Schwartz is very clear. A vibrant inner life requires inner quiet and calm.
And a life spent chasing external things.
Is the opposite. A life dominated by external pursuits, driven by unchecked desires, it's fundamentally at odds with cultivating a deep inner life. They pull in opposite directions.
So you can't really have both fully.
Yeah.
You can't chase every external whim and have a rich inner life simultaneously.
That's the core point he makes. It's about where you focus your primary energy. You have to choose to some extent.
Okay.
And the sequence he lays out is really important. Inner world needs calm. Calm needs reduced desires and focus on needs. And that path, even though it might seem like it takes effort up front, that's where true, lasting happiness is found. In this world and potentially beyond.
So practically speaking, how do we start weakening that hold desires have? Are there specific things he suggests?
Yes, definitely. He offers two very practical exercises.
Go.
The first one is this daily practice of opposing desires.
Opposing desires.
Yeah. The idea is to intentionally, consciously do 3 small things each day that go directly against a current desire you feel.
3 small acts of saying no to an urge.
Exactly. Like flexing a muscle, the muscle of your willpower, your detachment from just wanting things.
And the focus isn't just the act itself.
No, crucially, the focus is on the internal shift it creates. Noticing how it feels inside to resist that pull.
Building that inner resilience. Okay, what's the second exercise?
The second one deals with when desires don't work out. When you want something and you don't get it.
Okay, yeah, that happens all the time. The usual reaction is disappointment, frustration.
Right. But the advice here is completely different. Instead of getting upset, try to actually find joy in it.
Joy in not getting what you wanted.
Joy in the fact that your desires are, in that instance, lessening. See it as a positive sign that you're moving closer to being guided by true needs, not just fleeting wants.
Wow, that's a total reframing.
It is. So those are the tools. Consciously resist 3 small desires daily. And when a want isn't fulfilled, reframe that disappointment as a win for your inner peace.
Instead of feeling lack, you're celebrating reducing potential future disturbance.
Exactly. And Rabbi Schwartz really emphasizes that these might seem small, but they are incredibly potent practices for gradually building that essential inner peace.
This really brings us back to the core idea of seclusion, doesn't it? And he makes a really sharp distinction between external and internal types.
He does, using a very vivid image. Think about someone going off to a secluded forest, specifically for his Hitbodedut, right? For that dedicated quiet time.
Okay, yeah. Getting away from it all.
But what if they bring their phone, their laptop, all their devices, and they're constantly checking them, staying connected?
Then are they really secluded?
That's the question. Physically, yes, maybe. But mentally, they're still completely tethered to the world, right?
Yeah, the mind is still out there.
Precisely. And Rabbi Schwartz uses this to illustrate the point about our inner lives. Even if we physically remove distractions, if our minds are still jammed with worldly thoughts, anxieties, plans, are we truly secluded on the inside?
It's like bringing the noise with you, just in your head.
Mm.
The quiet place doesn't automatically silence the inner chatter.
Exactly. So he draws this contrast.
Yeah.
There are the external acts of Hitbodedut, the place, the time, but then there's the deeper internal Hitbodedut.
And what defines that internal kind?
It involves actively disconnecting your thoughts and feelings from those worldly distractions, creating a genuine inner sanctuary regardless of your external location.
And the key ingredient for creating that inner sanctuary is?
Inner peace. Rabbi Schwartz is adamant. Without that fundamental tranquility, our thoughts and emotions stay turbulent. They keep pulling us back to external stuff, preventing any real, deep inner seclusion.
Which leads us right to this core concept you talked about, menuchat hanefesh.
Yes.
That translates as tranquility of the soul.
Yes,
right?
that's right. Menuchat hanefesh. And it's presented as the absolute foundation, the bedrock for this whole deeper approach to Hitbodedut.
Okay.
Everything we've been talking about, reducing desires, focusing on needs, those daily opposition exercises, it's all aimed at gradually cultivating this very state, this tranquility.
So it's all groundwork for that soul level peace.
Exactly. And Rabbi Schwartz kind of anticipates, that some listeners might be thinking, okay, but when do we get to the Hitbodedut part, the actual techniques?
Yeah, people might want the how-to for prayer or meditation directly. So why this focus on the foundation first? Why not just jump in?
Because, he stresses, without that underlying inner peace, any attempts at the more traditional forms of Hitbodedut are likely to be, well, superficial.
They won't be very effective because the inner state isn't receptive. It's like trying to build a house on shaky ground. It just won't hold.
That makes a lot of sense. You need the calm base first.
Okay.
No, people are different, lives are different. How does this approach account for individuality?
That's a really important point. He brings in the need for chachmet shaim.
Which is like life wisdom, practical wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom of life, practical understanding. And also siyata dishmaya, which means divine assistance or heavenly help.
Okay.
Because everyone's situation, their personality, their challenges are unique, right? So a rigid cookie-cutter approach just isn't going to work perfectly for everyone.
So you take the general principles, but you have to apply them wisely to your own life.
Exactly. He uses a neat analogy. Air conditioning, most places have it, but individuals adjust the thermostat based on how they feel, the weather outside.
Right, you personalize it.
Precisely. So these principles of inner peace, reducing desires, seeking calm conscript, they need that personalized application, guided by wisdom and hopefully some divine help. And how do you know if you're getting that application right? What's the litmus test?
The real test, Rabbi Schwartz suggests, is simple. Has this approach, however you're applying it, brought more actual calmness into your life, more peace, more inner sincerity, even just small amounts? If the answer is consistently no, if you're trying but not feeling any shift towards peace, it might mean the way you're applying it needs some adjustment. Maybe you need more wisdom or to tweak the approach.
Which naturally leads to the question, okay, how much time should I dedicate? Is there a magic number for Hitbodedut?
And his answer is basically, there is no magic number.
Ah. Now what some people want to hear, maybe.
Probably not. But he stresses it's not about minutes or hours on a clock. It really requires self-awareness, using that life wisdom, and even praying for guidance on what's right for you right now.
So it can change day to day or phase to phase in life.
Absolutely. What works for one person won't work for another, and what works for you today might not be right next month. It needs that flexibility.
It's more about tuning into yourself than following a strict rule.
Exactly. And he actually warns that trying to force a rigid practice, especially when you're just not feeling it internally, can backfire.
How so?
It can lead to frustration, feeling like a failure, rather than leading towards peace. It can become another source of stress, ironically.
Right. Okay, so for people trying to integrate these ideas, what's the encouragement?
Keep reflecting, he suggests. Ask yourself, is this bringing me more inner peace? Be honest. And importantly, he really invites feedback. He wants to hear about the struggles, the questions people have, because that helps clarify things for everyone and address the common roadblocks.
That's helpful. Now, it feels important to mention something Rabbi Schwartz himself points out. This path we're discussing, it's one way, right?
Yes, absolutely crucial. He emphasizes this is one valid, deep, powerful path to connect with the divine, to find inner peace. But it is definitely not the only way.
So if someone is trying this and it just consistently feels wrong or incredibly difficult for them,
his advice is clear. Consider exploring other paths. There are many ways to connect, many approaches to spiritual life. Find one that resonates better with your specific nature, your inclinations.
And there shouldn't be any shame in that. It's not like failing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
He's very clear, no shame whatsoever. It's about finding the path that truly works for your soul's journey.
Okay, so let's revisit that core distinction again. Internal versus external Hitbodedut. How do you know the difference? How does it feel?
He explains that the internal kind, it arises from that deep inner quiet we've been talking about. There's a genuine yearning for that peace.
Okay.
It feels like a profound inner connection, and it often comes with a sense of joy or deep contentment, even amidst challenges. It's less about the external setting and more about that inner state.
In our conversation today, it seems that we spent most of the time talking about how to get that inner quiet,
Yeah.
right? How to forge the tools, so to speak.
Exactly. He acknowledges that. Much of the discussion has been about laying the groundwork, about cultivating that menuchat hanefesh, the tranquility of the soul. That's the essential tool.
So the next logical step, maybe for another time, would be, what do you do with that tool once you have it?
Precisely. How do you then use that cultivated inner peace to deepen your connection, your prayer, your understanding? That's sort of the next chapter, which wasn't the main focus here.
Okay. Now, a really common problem people face, even when they try to sit quietly, is just the noise. The thoughts, the feelings, they just won't stop. Difficulty disconnecting. Does he address that?
He does. He suggests that if you find it consistently really hard to disconnect from that mental chatter, that emotional reactivity,
Yeah.
it likely signals that your soul, generally speaking, isn't in a calm state. The baseline is agitated.
So it points back to needing that foundational work.
Yes. It might mean you need to work on cultivating general focus and even order in your life before expecting deep, quiet reflection to come easily.
Okay, so what are some baby steps for that? Improving general focus.
He offers a few practical starting points. One is just basic practical order, like gradually bringing order to your physical space. Simple things. Make your bed consistently. Keep the kitchen counter clear. Small acts of external order can surprisingly influence internal order.
Interesting. What about mental focus?
For that, he suggests practicing concentrating on a single, simple image. Start for just a few seconds, then gradually increase the time. Just holding one thing in your mind.
Training the focus muscle.
Exactly. And for emotional focus, try concentrating on a feeling of love or appreciation for someone dear to you. Again, start short, maybe 30 seconds, and gradually try to deepen and sustain that focused feeling over time.
So building focus in different areas, practical, mental, emotional.
Right, as foundational steps if disconnecting feels really difficult.
He also mentioned a specific groups approach, trying to identify if thoughts, feelings are internal or external. How does that fit in?
Yeah, he acknowledges that kind of self-analysis, trying to understand the source of your inner experience, is valuable. Any conscious effort towards self-understanding is good,
Right.
But he clarifies the specific deep dive we're on, based on his teaching here, is really built on cultivating menuchat hanefesh first.
Okay.
So while understanding thought origins is useful, it's a slightly different angle than the primary focus on achieving that baseline soul tranquility.
Got it. And what about that age-old problem?
Yeah.
Procrastination, the I'll start tomorrow syndrome.
Yes, the classic obstacle. He definitely acknowledges it. That tendency to put off starting is huge.
Any quick tips there?
He suggests practical things like finding an accountability partner, someone you check in with to help overcome that initial inertia and just get started.
Makes sense. Finally, there was this idea about the dedicated time influencing the whole day. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, he confirms that understanding. The ideal isn't just to have an isolated hour of peace.
Right.
The goal is that the state cultivated during that dedicated time, whether it's 10 minutes or an hour, starts to ripple outwards. It should ideally influence your entire day, leading to a more generally internally focused way of living.
So it becomes less of a separate practice and more of a fundamental shift in orientation.
Exactly. That's the aim. That inner focus becomes your baseline. And even short periods of dedicated external Hitbodedut, if they come from that place of growing inner calm, can significantly reinforce that broader internal state all day long.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core insight seems to be that this deeper peace, this richer way of living, it doesn't come from some magic bullet.
No, definitely not.
It comes from the steady, sometimes quiet work of cultivating inner tranquility that menuchat hanefesh. And part of that is consciously reducing the power of external desires.
It's a journey.
It really is a journey of ongoing effort, increasing self-awareness. And for you, the learner, just remember that absorbing this kind of knowledge It takes time. It takes reflection.
Simply engaging with these ideas, thinking about them, that's already a really significant first step.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you to take away and just, mull over. Think about one small desire you feel pulling at you today. Just one.
Sure.
Could you, just for a little while, consciously choose not to follow it? Just notice what happens inside when you resist that pull, even slightly.
A little experiment.
Yeah, a small experiment in inner observation. See what subtle shift it might create. It could be really revealing.
Definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
And we're really looking forward to continuing this exploration, especially hearing your questions and experiences to guide where we go next.